Hey folks, I'm Brendan. You're watching the Overqualified Henchman, and this is part 3 of your guide to the spiders of your friendly neighborhood. Last time we talked about clones and the Ultimate Universe, but this time we're going back to the future. And also the other different future, and a couple of timelines that are technically present day, but everybody's relative ages are different, so it sort of feels like the future. Get ready for some timey-wimey, itsy-bitsy spiders. We've already talked about Miles Morales of the Ultimate Universe, but would you believe that he's not the first Latino character of mixed heritage to take up the mantle of Spider-Man? That distinction would go to Miguel O'Hara, the Spider-Man of the year 2099. 2099 was an entire line of Marvel comics that imagined a dystopia future controlled by megacorporations, kind of Blade Runner style. You had Punisher 2099, Ghost Rider 2099, I'm a big fan of X-Men 2099 myself. Spider-Man 2099, however, opens with Miguel working as a geneticist for the megacorp Alchemax. Among other things, Alchemax was basically in control of the New York police force, think OCP and RoboCop, and Miguel's main project was creating genetically engineered super soldiers to work for the company. He takes his main inspiration from the legend of Spider-Man, but when one of his test subjects dies, he decides to resign. Tyler Stone, the CEO of Alchemax, isn't having it and tricks Miguel into taking Rapture, a hyper-addictive drug that genetically bonds to the taker. He plans on using this to blackmail Miguel, but Miguel decides to repair the damage using a risky genetic experiment. An experiment which is sabotaged by his jealous assistant because, of course it is. The experiment gives Miguel, I kid you not, 50% spider DNA and makes him the new Spider-Man. His costume is actually from a Day of the Dead celebration, but the skull motif isn't where the differences end. Miguel has retractable talons on his fingers and toes, which let him climb walls, and retractable fangs which can deliver a paralytic toxin. He doesn't have a spider sense per se, but he does have enhanced senses, including telescopic vision. Spider-Man 2099 was pretty easily the most enduring part of that subline, and he's shown up in a lot of places since, including a couple of video game appearances, and most recently being stuck in the present day, where he's working to stop the rise of the megacorps in the first place. Now, if you're a superhero movie fan, and let's face it, aside from that one coworker you've got who hates fun for some reason, we all are, you're probably excited about the trailer for Logan. That story in large part is based on the comic Old Man Logan, which is very popular and which I do not like. Listen, you're either the sort of person for whom Hulk incest is a deal breaker, or you're not. I am. It takes place in a sort of Mad Max future where most of the heroes are dead and the villains have carved up the United States into kingdoms. A big part of the plot has Clint Barton, Hawkeye, recruiting Logan to go save his daughter, who had gathered up a bunch of her friends to try to take down the Kingpin of New York. Important to note, she's also the granddaughter of Peter Parker, because sure. When they finally show up to rescue her, however, it turns out that she wasn't trying to take down the Kingpin out of the goodness of her heart, she just wanted to take over his kingdom. Dun dun dun! Now don't get me wrong, I like Ashley's costume, but it's a little weird that she got a toy because she doesn't really do much. The assumption is she's got the usual spider powers, because she uses the butt of a shotgun to decapitate the Kingpin, which, you know, is not how you use a shotgun, but fine. When Spider-Verse came around, she's one of the darker, more violent spiders recruited by the superior Spider-Man to help fight the Inheritors, but even then she mostly just showed up in background shots. Like I said, Old Man Logan has a lot of fans, which probably explains how Ashley got a toy, but I'm not super sorry that she won't be showing up in Logan. So, can we have a timeline that's a little more optimistic? Can that be a thing? Welcome to MC2, as in Marvel Comics 2. Like 2099, MC2 is a whole line of comics that basically ask the question, what if our heroes had aged in real time? So Peter Parker, who'd been 15 when he got his powers, was now in his 40s, married to Mary Jane Watson, and had a teenage daughter of his own, Mayday Parker, aka the sensational Spider-Girl. The MC2 universe was pretty wild. Like, there was J2, the son of the Juggernaut, whose superhero costume included a flannel shirt tied around his waist. But once again, the spider part of it was pretty easily the most popular part. You might have noticed it's a bit of a theme with the Ultimate Universe 2099, and it's true again here. May inherited her dad's powers with a couple of tweaks. She's not quite as physically strong as him, but she is faster, and her spider sense is more powerful, so it detects not just danger, but also weak points. The coolest twist, though, was to wall crawling. See, the story at the time was that Peter's ability to stick to basically any surface was magnetic in nature. Just go with it. May's version of this was developed enough that not only could she stick to a surface, but she could cause other people to get stuck to a surface she was touching as well. Don't think too hard about the science there, just know that it made for some cool fight scenes. May's greatest strength, though, was her knack for turning enemies into allies. A lot of supervillains are misunderstood or just having a really bad day, and she helped them get their lives back on track. Like I said, a little more optimistic this time, and it meant that as the series went on, she had a veritable army of allies to call upon. Not that that did her a whole lot of good when Spider-Verse came around. I've mentioned Spider-Verse a couple of times, but short version, a family of dimension-hopping Victorian vampires who feed on people with spider powers start hopping dimensions and feeding on people with spider powers. The MC2 universe was particularly appetizing because it had Peter, May, and her baby brother Ben. Side note, the costume May wears is actually based on the one worn by Ben Reilly when he was Spider-Man, and since Peter refers to his clone as his brother, that makes him May's Uncle Ben, her dead Uncle Ben, which makes naming her little brother Ben as well seem like kind of a bad idea. Anyway, the various spider people have also been dimension hopping trying to save each other, and May's dad sacrifices himself to hold off the bad guys long enough for the good guys to arrive and evacuate May and her brother. That leads May to go on a whole character arc about vengeance before eventually remembering what it means to be a hero, adopting a costume based on her dad's more iconic look, and taking up the name Spider-Woman. Hey, by that point, she'd earned it. Spider-Verse also introduced a whole bunch of entirely new Spider characters, and we saved the most popular for last. In the Clone episode, I mentioned Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's girlfriend who died after being kidnapped by the Green Goblin. Well, in another universe, it was Gwen who was bitten by the radioactive spider instead of Peter, becoming Spider-Woman, aka Spider-Gwen. Now, a big part of Spider-Gwen's popularity is that her costume design is bangin'. You guys already know I love hoods on spider costumes, but the white and black with the purple and teal accents, dang! Gwen's gotten like all the merchandise since that costume was revealed, and rightfully so. She also got her own ongoing comic after Spider-Verse, where we learned that the really cool thing about her world is that there's not just one point of divergence. Everything's different. Her version of Peter Parker transformed himself into the Lizard and died during a fight with Spider-Woman, something that caused his best friend Harry Osborn to swear vengeance on her. On that Earth, Tony Stark is still an arms dealer, and Matt Murdock is a lawyer for the Kingpin. Or maybe actually the Kingpin himself. Basically, they've had a lot more freedom to play around, including taking away Gwen's powers. She can only get them back temporarily by using these power-ups, the supply of which is currently controlled by Matt Murdock. Also, Gwen is the drummer for a rock band called the Mary Janes, which is basically my favorite thing ever. In terms of other Spider people I'd like to add to my collection, they already announced a figure for Spider UK, a Spider-Man who's also a member of the Captain Britain Corps, and we're gonna get a whole bunch of different versions of the MCU Spider-Man once Homecoming comes out. Spider-Man Noir's shown up in video games and cartoons, so he's probably a pretty safe bet at some point, but who I really need is Peter Porker, the sportacular Spider-Ham. See, he's a spider who was bitten by a radioactive pig. I'd also really like to see Spider-Punk, smasher of the police state, and Spider-Man India, who's Spider-Man from India. There's also Lady Spider, the steampunk inventor, and Spider but with like slashes instead of eyes, who's sort of like Spider-Man meets Evangelion. There have been a bunch of different Spider versions of Mary Jane Watson, like the costume she's currently wearing over in Renew Your Vows, or the time she briefly suited up in the Iron Spider costume. There are worlds where Uncle Ben was bitten by the spider, or Aunt May. Ooh, Cosmic Spider-Man, when he got the Uniforce and became Captain Universe. We still haven't gotten all the characters who've called themselves Spider-Woman in the main universe. At the very least, we need Julia and Maddie, and you know what? Throw in Madam Web while you're at it. What I'm getting at is, there's a lot of spider people. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, check out part 1 and part 2 of my guide to the spiders of your friendly neighborhood. Then let me know in the comments down below who your favorite spider character is. And as always, do me a favor, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone you think would like it. Do you guys want me to get more in depth about Spider-Verse MC2 2099? Let me know. Until then, watch out for any uncles you have named Ben, and keep on henching.